Hello, gazers.
Hello, gazers. Hello, Lee.
Hello, Dave. Are you well?
I'm really, really well. It's been a while, hasn't it, since we've been separated by distance?
Yes, it has. I feel like I'm visiting in prison or something, and we're speaking to each other through one of those glass screens again.
It's like the Instagram thing, the Idaho.
Oh, yeah, the Idaho Penitentiary boys. You always get back to that, don't you?
I was scrolling through that the other day just to see who was potential dating material out of the Idaho prisoners.
And were there many?
Well, I'm not telling you because you might steal him off me. Before we do anything else, we've got a little call to arms. If you're listening to this podcast and you like it, what's wrong with you? No, I didn't mean that. I meant if you like it, then please hit that follow button. So on that note, Lee, how are you? 1 hour's sleep, I heard you say.
Yes, all right, thank you. Yes, I've just had an interesting evening last night, that's all I'm saying on the matter. I'm glowing today is a technical term.
Glowing with radiation.
I was walking like Aunt Sally on the walk of shame this morning back home at 10 o'clock, but yeah, I'm in a glow. How long this glow lasts and slips into a coma, I'm not sure, but the clock is ticking, love.
I'm full of the joys of spring today. 9 hours sleep. Hardly ever have 9 hours sleep. Feel wonderful. Sipping my green tea. Health, 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 darling.
That's not green tea, that's sherry in that cup.
I've got rid of the Christmas sherry now.
You drank it, you mean?
Yeah. Didn't pour it down the sink, did I? Paid for it. I'm a Yorkshire lad. Come on.
Yeah.
But also, I've cleared out all the Christmas bump. January is the time where you just kind of like eat, and eat, isn't it? All the leftovers and stuff. Leftover chocolates, leftover biscuits, leftover chutneys, all that kind of shit. But it's all cleared out. There's no remnants of Christmas at all in our house now.
Just as well, because it's the 1st of February when we're recording this, darling. That would be a bit weird. I've got a little errata I need to bring up from the last episode. I've prostrated myself in front of the history gods because I erroneously said that Ian Smith was the leader of South Africa and actually he was the leader of Rhodesia. And I apologise to the history gods.
How were we talking about Ian Smith from Rhodesia?
He was mentioned in Till Death Us Do Part. And I was talking about how it was reflecting current politics. So many apologies. Now, you had a couple of shout-outs, didn't you?
I did. First and foremost, can I just mention my book club? I put out a little call to arms yesterday because I just wanted to get our downloads to reach a certain milestone by the end of January. So I put out a call to arms to the book club of the village that I'm a member of. They responded and downloaded until they could not download anymore. Big shout-out to all the ladies there. I'm honorary gay.
Honorary gay.
And our ladies brought it yesterday, so thank you to all of those.
Thank you, ladies.
We've had an email from the creative department.
If you remember, listeners, the creative department a while back said that we need to find at least one positive thing in every episode, no matter how rubbish it is. However, the creative department has come back to us after having watched the Girly Show and realising that they too could not find one good thing in that episode. So they've given us a wild card, haven't they?
They have.
So we're allowed to do a what a load of old shit card if we hate something, but we've got to use it sparingly, Dave, haven't we? We're not allowed to use it every week. How often are we allowed to use it?
So Shirley said it cannot be played in 2 episodes back to back, so we've got to choose carefully.
Right.
Well, thank you, Shirley, from the creative department, as per usual. She's got her finger on the podcast world and she knows what works and what doesn't. So thank you, Shirley, for all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had a message on Instagram from a lady called Ruth, who is one of our gazers on Instagram. And she's saying, after we put out our call for suggestions, as we always do, all our gazers, please suggest any future topics. And she suggested the first series of Prime Suspect. What do you think about that?
It's a good one, actually. That's a good idea.
I think it's a really good one because I think it kind of tells about the treatment of women in the police force, treatment of women in general from the late 80s, early 90s. And it's a crime drama, which we've never discussed before.
Yeah, put it on the list, get it to the list department. I think they're on the 34th floor.
They are. Thank you, Ruth, for that. Yeah. And then we had another Instagram message from Andrea in the US. And she said that when she was a teenager, she snuck in to see Cruising at the cinema. Went in to see a
Andrea.
I know. She went in to see a teenage-related film, but then they would always kind of sneak in round the back to, you know when you used to go to the movies and you used to watch a film and you used to see if you could get in to see another one free of charge. Well, I think that's what she did. And she went to see Cruising at the age of 13.
Wow, gosh. Well, I hope you weren't scarred for life, Andrea. I hope you're all right.
Yeah, I think that would have been a real eye-opener.
I'll say, bloody
Uh,
hell.
we had a lot of positive response to our cruising episode. I mean, it was rather racy and naughty, wasn't it? But I think it
I
went down
know.
well, so to speak, with gazers out there.
X-rated, that one. X-rated love.
Yeah, okay, so thank you
Um,
for all our messages that people have sent us. It's great.
yes. Keep them coming. We love to hear from you. What are we talking about today, Dave?
So we're going to talk about this TV show from the US called The Comeback. And it had 2 seasons, one in 2005 and then one in 2014, so 9 years later. So The Comeback actually in itself staged a comeback for a second season 9 years later. It stars Lisa Kudrow from Friends fame, and it's about a fading sitcom actress who has a second chance at fame after she auditions for a new sitcom, and alongside starring in the sitcom, she has to, as part of the contract, take part in her own reality show, which is called The Comeback. And so it kind of charts through her life as the show is commissioned, as she's cast, runs through the pilot, right through to the first taping, to a PR promotional tour in New York. We watched 2 episodes, didn't we? So we're only going to focus on the first 2 episodes of the first series. So that's essentially it. In Wikipedia, it's called, in the genre, cringe comedy, satire, and mockumentary. And I think those 3 descriptions are perfectly apt for what The Comeback is about, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. But before we have a look, should we have a look at the news events of 2005? Because The Comeback debuted on June the 5th, 2005. So should we cross over to the news desk, Dave?
Let's do it.
Okay, it's a big year for the royals. On the 13th of January, pictures of Prince Harry wearing a Nazi military uniform at a private fancy dress party are published in the newspapers, and that went down like a cup of cold sick, didn't it?
Oh, gosh, can you remember that? It was splashed all over the front pages.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say out of touch, but
Yeah, we all do things in our misspent youth, don't we? But I don't think I've ever thought, actually,
Yes.
do you know what? I'm going to go to a fancy dress party dressed as a Nazi.
do you know, I remember when I was a student, the year Sonia lost Eurovision, we had a Eurovision fancy dress party, and
You went dressed as Sonia.
no, no, I wish I had. I can't remember what I was dressed as because the party was completely overshadowed by a girl whose name I won't mention, who decided to represent Germany with a Nazi uniform on. And there were several Jewish people at the party who were slightly taken aback by it. And it was like, whoa. And this was in 1993. And she couldn't understand why people were a bit slack-jawed in amazement. Hey ho. But yeah, Harry, not a good look.
No, not good luck, Harry. Okay, on the 7th of February, Ellen MacArthur attains the solo around-the-world sailing record, returning to Falmouth the following day. Although subsequently beaten, this remains a record for a woman. Well, there you go. Do you remember Ellen MacArthur?
There you go. I do. Yeah. I remember thinking, gosh, I couldn't even sail a rowing boat on a rolling lake, never mind around the bloody world. Imagine being in the middle of the Atlantic or the Pacific on your Todd.
Yeah.
I mean, good God. I mean, I can't even bear the thought of a cruise, never mind a...
I vaguely remember a skit on that from Dawn French where she was sat on the boat.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And she ran out of curly whirlies.
Yeah. And she'd only gone like a mile or something, hadn't she? It's a big year for Northern Ireland. Because since 1969, the Northern Ireland conflict has rumbled on. On the 9th of February, Tony Blair issues a public apology to the 11 members of the families who were wrongly convicted for the Guildford and Woolwich IRA pub bombings of 1974. On the 24th of June, the IRA apologises unreservedly to the family of 14-year-old Kathleen Feeney, who they shot dead in Derry in November 1973, after having previously blamed the British Army. And then on July the 28th, the Provisional IRA orders an end to its armed campaign and will focus slowly on democratic politics. I mean, it's a huge year, and it's taken 36 years of conflict to come to an end.
On the 10th of February, Clarence House announces that the Prince of Wales is to marry Camilla Parker Bowles on Friday the 8th of April in a civil ceremony at Windsor Castle. She will be styled HRH, the Duchess of Cornwall, and it was said if the Prince becomes king, HRH, the Princess Consort.
Well, I mean, that's what they sold us, didn't they? But suddenly it's Queen Camilla.
Still can't get used to Queen Camilla.
Still can't get used to the idea of the king and the queen. When I hear the king, when I hear the Princess of Wales, it's like, Diana's dead. What are you talking about? It's really weird. Speaking of posh people, on the 18th of February, the Hunting Act, the ban on hunting with dogs in England, comes into force. Opponents intend to challenge the new law and carry on hunting, and they're still doing it today on the sly. Now, speaking of comebacks, there is a big, big comeback this year, which I got myself all excited about, because on the 26th of March, Doctor Who is back, having not been on screen since 1989 for a full series and a TV movie in 1996. It stars Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper, an average of 10.81 million viewers. Over 40% of the watching audience tune into the first episode. 16th of April, 3 weeks later, it was announced that Christopher Eccleston has quit and that David Tennant's going to be the Doctor. I mean, what a turnaround. What a time to be alive for a Doctor Who fan. I was beside myself.
Just explain to our gazers, how did you feel when the announcement came that Doctor Who was going to be returning?
I was at work and I used to look at the old BBC Doctor Who website every day, just for no reason. There was never anything on it. And then I remember vividly switching the computer on, doing all that, looking onto the website, and it just said Doctor Who is coming back. And I literally I think I sobbed a bit. I think I peed myself a bit. I was just in a state of apoplexy, honestly beside myself. And then I got so nervous while they were filming it and all the filming pictures came out that it's going to be a massive flop. Your husband used to rib me merciless. He's saying, what happens if no one watches it? What happens if no one watches it? You know, so I had this real anxiety, but then it came back and it was a huge success, darling. So fabulous days.
I can imagine. I was very excited. I just remember driving around London and one of my jobs that I did, and there was a massive billboard of Billie Piper and David Tennant and saying Doctor Who returning. Yeah. And just feeling very excited and very nostalgic for the original show. In other news, on the 4th of April, this is very apt for what's going on now, particularly in America at the moment. On the 4th of April, the Gender Recognition Act of 2004 comes into effect, allowing transsexual people to have their reassigned gender legally recognised by law.
And it's interesting that no one gave a shit. There was no hoo-ha, there was no protest, there was no... And in fact, I can't remember when Nadia won Big Brother. She was a trans woman, but it was a similar kind of vibe. There was just like, it was just a thing. And it's only in the last 20 years that it's become this hot potato. Is it a result of this? I don't think so. I think it's more recent than that, the backlash and the way people are acting these days. But yeah, I mean, it's just astonishing that 20 years ago, this passed by kind of seamlessly and was just accepted.
The rise of social media, I think.
Yes. And again, it just polarizes, doesn't it? And just promotes horrible things. On the 5th of May, the 2005 general election, the Labour Party's returned to power for a third term, but with a greatly reduced majority of 66 seats.
So I didn't know this, but on the 9th of May, the Sellafield nuclear plant facility in Cumbria is closed down due to the confirmation of a 20-ton leak of highly radioactive uranium and plutonium fuel. Oh yeah, we sprung a leak.
Sprung a leak? Can you get some sticky back plastic, please? Don't remember it. The 6th of July, I remember this very well. London was chosen as the host city of the 2012 Olympic Games, beating Paris in the final round. I mean, that was a big day for London.
That really was. Yeah. I remember I was in Bristol at the time, working on Casualty, and I remember on my lunch break being sat, it was a gloriously sunny day, and just being sat on the grass in this park where we were filming, and the news came on the radio, or we heard about it, and thinking, gosh, what a really good day for Britain and for London. It felt like there was a sense of optimism, but then we cut to the next day, don't we?
Yeah, the next day, it's what a contrast when you get the July bombings, the 7/7 bombings in London. I think there's 4 bombs go off. I remember my flatmate at the time was on a bus and suddenly she said, can you turn the telly on? See, there's something going on because the traffic hasn't moved for like an hour. And I switched it on, and lo and behold, it was like, you'd probably need to come home, love, you're not going to work today. I mean, ghastly, horrible.
It really was. I remember I was at home, that I'd come back from Bristol that day, and obviously the first thing you have to do is call home, isn't it? And say, I'm all right, I'm safe. You know, if you lived in London, I think, you know, everybody called home to tell their relatives that they were okay. Thank goodness. a really scary time to be in London, and it kind of just changed the London landscape for a while. But saying that, I think Londoners were quite resilient, weren't they? It didn't stop anybody going about their business after that. So I think, I remember there was a time when you kind of got on a tube after that and thought you were a little bit extra vigilant and a little bit nervous about it, but it didn't stop you from going out doing things.
Yeah, well, life had to go on, didn't it? And you just had to. But I remember that slight feeling of nervousness, and I remember about a week or two later, there was a backpack had been left on the train, and suddenly there were train stoppages everywhere. People had left stuff, and it was like, come on, guys.
Yes.
What's just happened? Yeah, it was a really hideous day. Lots of changes at the high street in 2005. Littlewoods sells its 119 stores across the UK, which sees them converted to Primark clothing stores, and the Littlewoods name vanishes from the high street after 83 years. On November, Safeway disappears from Britain after 43 years with the rebranding of the last remaining store by its owner, Morrison's. I mean, this felt like, gosh, these were big things. This week, WH Smith is closing their stores, apparently. But I still remember the shock when Woolies went. That was the big one, wasn't it? Oh, I don't think we've got over Woolies as a nation.
Well, I mean, that's where you used to go and buy all your singles, wasn't it?
Yes.
Your 45s when you were 45s. I sound like I'm probably 80. This is when, you went to buy your first records, wasn't it? And Woolies was just gone.
Gone. Pick and mix, gone. Weird selection of toys, gone. Stationery for school, gone. All of it. Crying shame, I tell you. Happy news to end the year. On the 19th of December, the Civil Partnership Act comes into force, granting same-sex couples similar legal rights to those of married heterosexuals. That's nice, isn't it?
It really is. And that's quite apt because this month, February, marks LGBT plus History Month, which is beginning all through February.
Yes.
There's various events to mark various stages in LGBT history in Britain. And then in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be watching The Naked Civil Servants, which was a landmark film, wasn't it?
Yes, just to get our 2 pennies worth in. Well, that was 2005 done. Fair to middling year, highs and lows.
Let's have a look at what was in the TV landscape in 2005. Now, Desperate Housewives makes its debut on Channel 4 and it achieved 4.4 million viewers, which is pretty good for something that's going out on 10 o'clock on Channel 4.
Yeah, I actually quite like Desperate Housewives. On the 23rd of January, Happy Mondays dancer Mark Berry, known professionally as Bez, wins the 3rd series of Celebrity Big Brother.
Remember that. Oh, very apt. On the 16th of February 2005, the first series of The Apprentice debuts on BBC Two. 20 years it's been going.
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, you can tell now it's a bit tired, isn't it? I think.
I still love it. I mean, I just still love just shouting at the tellies, and it just kind of makes you feel good about yourself watching people being such idiots.
Yeah. But I think what's interesting is the contestants now have clearly grown up watching The Apprentice, and they're even worse. You would think they might be a bit more savvy as a result of it, but they're worse. They're terrible. On the 19th of February, EastEnders celebrates its 20th anniversary, airing a special episode in which Dirty Den Watts is killed by his new wife, Chrissy. Is that when she bludgeons him with the ashtray on the bar or something?
It's a doorstop. It's a kind of dog-shaped doorstop. Yeah, and obviously EastEnders celebrating its 40th anniversary this month as well. Okay, so on the 5th of March, Kat Deeley presents her final edition, CD UK, after 16 years. After 6 years.
She's not that old.
Not 16 years. Sorry, Kat Deeley, I just added 10 years onto you.
I used to love CD UK on a Saturday morning. We'd all watch it hungover and roar with laughter. It was one of those shows that was for kids, but a lot of grown-ups, young grown-ups watched as well, because it was just great. It was fun. Okay,
sad news. 26th of June, Countdown presenter and legend, I may add, Richard Whiteley, dies at Leeds General Infirmary following a short illness. His final episodes of Countdown aired between 28th of June and the 1st of July. Sad loss, Richard Whiteley. What a lovely, lovely man.
Much missed. In October that year, Bleak House, which is a 15-episode adaptation of the Charles Dickens novel, produced and made in the style of a modern soap opera, airs in half-hour episodes. And I watched that and I really enjoyed it. I remember Gillian Anderson was in it, and it was her kind of surprising new role she was taking when she was forging out a career as another living legend, basically.
Isn't it strange that, when Gillian Anderson did the X-Files and everybody just thought she was an American, then when she kind of started doing things with a British accent, everyone was a bit like, But obviously she has got a British accent, hasn't she? Or a transatlantic.
When she's in Britain, she speaks with a British accent. When she's in America, she speaks with an American accent because it's just kind of, she just switches between the two as and when, because of where she was brought up. She was brought up in the UK for the first 4 or 5 years of her life and then went to live in America, and also is a legend and is one of my man crushes, my boy crush. I've got a real crush on Gillian Anderson. I'd never want to do anything naked with her. I just want to be a friend.
Shall we have a look at the official singles charts from the 5th of June 2005, which is around about the date that the comeback was first transmitted?
Yes, let's do that.
Now, as past experience dictates, this is the moment in time where our knowledge of the charts becomes a little bit blurry, should we say.
Yeah. I think this might be my last hurrah about 2005. So let's see what we can see. I recognise names. I don't recognise songs.
The first one that I recognise is number 36, The Other Side of the World by Katie Tunstall.
Don't know that at all. I don't know the Destiny's Child song, number 35, Girl. Don't know that. I do know Candy Shop 50 Cent for some bizarre reason. Not quite sure how.
Yes, he was floating around, but yes, I'm going up and up and up. I can see Eminem at 26, Mockingbird. Don't know that. Kaiser Chiefs, 25, Every Day I Love You Less and Less.
Yes, I know that one.
Now, that's the name of the song, Lee. Don't take it personally.
We've got Jerry Halliwell at number 22 with Desire. That song's going to peak at number 22, unfortunately for Jerry. She's definitely on the slide at this point, isn't she?
Jerry. Okay, so then we've got Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, with always songs that I've never, ever heard of.
Snoop Dogg, Wilson and Timberlake at number 17 with Signs. Never heard of it. I Like the Way, Body Rockers. I think I know that one. I like the way you move.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that one. Hooray, we know one.
We like that one. Yes, we know one. We know one. Oh, and number 12. It's having to get to number 12 before we actually start to go.
What?
You're Beautiful.
By James Blunt.
Again, that's the name of the song.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
I like James Blunt now.
Yes, I
Not
do.
his music,
Yeah.
but I like him as a person. I think he's very apt, very right.
Yeah.
Takes everything with a pinch of salt. Humorous.
Yeah.
Self-depreciating.
Yes, absolutely. Is this the way to Amarillo, Tony Christie featuring Peter Kay with an all-star video, I remember. All kinds of people appeared in that video, didn't they? Right, top 10.
They did.
Top 10. Oh, God. Okay, maybe my music taste had stopped before 2005 looking at this top 10. Shot You Down, Audio Bullies with Nancy Sinatra. That's a great song.
Number 8, Hollaback Girl, Gwen Stefani, during her little solo outings.
Yes, I bought that album, actually.
Did you?
I did. Speed of Sound, Coldplay, number 6. Yeah. Are you a bit suspicious of people who say they like Coldplay?
I just look upon Coldplay as like a little bit of a cult.
Yes, it's weird, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't go to a concert.
They're very beige, aren't they? Very beige.
It's just the way they keep coming back to Glastonbury, and it's like, headlining on a Saturday night, Coldplay. It's like, great.
Okay. Don't Funk With My Heart, the Black Eyed Peas at number 6.
One Thing, Anne-Marie, I like that.
I don't know it.
It's just one thing that's got me tripping.
No, crushing on.
Right.
The Best of You, the Foo Fighters, don't know it. Feel Good in Gorillaz at number 3. We know that one. Sure to God, we know that one.
We do. Number 2, Lonely by Akon.
Acorn, don't know it. Should we see what number 1 is for another one we absolutely have no idea what it is?
Go on then.
Diddle-diddle-diddle. Oh my God. Axel F, Crazy Fucking Frog at number 1. I mean, right, that's enough of that chart. That was shit.
Not for us.
So should we turn to the matter at hand, Dave?
Let's do it. Tell us what happens in these 2 episodes, Lee.
Well, it's a big day for former star Valerie Cherish as she embarks on the first day of her new reality TV show and has an audition for a sitcom that's going to be her big comeback. However, Valerie realises she may have been out of the game for too long and she's not the golden girl she once was, usurped by younger actresses and disinterested TV executives. However, her new sitcom was taken up by the network, but when the cast travelled to New York for an unveiling event, Valerie begins to realise that the carefully constructed reality she wants to present may be of little interest to everyone else.
Right. Now, Lee.
Yes.
What I think we should do is, before we take a deep dive into the comeback, talk about Hollywood comebacks in general.
Yes.
Because they are a kind of phenomenon.
The comeback is as old as the hills, isn't it? You can look at Betty Davis came back twice in her career with All About Eve, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Go back to Sunset Boulevard. That's a film which is all about an actress who wants to make a big comeback. As a phenomenon, it's quite a thing, and especially at the minute, because Pamela Anderson's back. Interestingly, she's been appearing on the red carpet, shockingly without any makeup on. And the backlash against her for daring to appear as a woman of a certain age with no makeup on has been unbelievable from certain quarters of the media. Typical male voices trying to shout her down, you know.
Well, yeah, it's the same with Demi Moore, really, isn't it? It's kind of like saying, you know, she's been out in the wilderness and now she's back. As though she was relevant in the past and then she faded into obscurity and now she's back. And I think that's kind of like an unfair label, because what's to say that Demi Moore earned her millions in the 80s and early 90s and then chose to step back from the limelight for a while.
Yeah.
You know, there are male examples of comebacks. For example, John Travolta came back, didn't he, with Pulp Fiction, etc. It does feel to me as though women are labelled more than men as their comeback being something that's been desperately sought after.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the quest to seek relevance again.
Yes.
Whereas what's not to say that Demi Moore, she'd made her money in the 80s and the early 90s and she decided to kind of go and live a quiet life, a la Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, but I think
basically at the peak of her fame decided to go and take a step back from fame.
Yeah, often with the women, what tends to get labelled at them is the box office poison, which kind of effectively ends their career, because Demi Moore, as you rightly say, was huge and made loads of money, but then was in a series of flops that bombed and was pilloried at the time for them. And I think she's probably just like, okay, fuck this, okay, we're soldiers, let's not bother. But one thing, obviously, she's back with this film, The Substance. And one thing that I love about horror films is that they often do this. They will resurrect the career of an older actress or actor, usually an actress, and give them a really juicy role to play. And if suddenly everybody goes, oh my God, she's fantastic. You know, Betty Davis and Joan Crawford did it in Baby Jane in 1962. You know, they were box office poisoned by that point. So it's definitely weighted differently for a woman's comeback than it is for a man's comeback, for sure. As we find out in this show, which I'd never seen before. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really clever. It was really smart. Yeah, I think if anything, this show was probably too meta for its own good at the time, because if you think at this time, there's a slew of these reality shows which are following people. So they start with the Osbournes in 2002. Then we get like the Anna Nicole Show, Nick and Jessica Newlyweds, The Simple Life, the Ashley Simpson Show, Being Bobby Brown, Brittany and Kevin, all within like 2 or 3 years. So there's a real glut of them. So I can imagine if you're watching TV and you see this one, you think it might just be another of these shows, but actually it's a real satire, and I really, really enjoyed it.
It's about women aging in the entertainment industry, particularly kind of like the Hollywood style system. It's about navigating the cutthroat world of TV, which is represented here as being increasingly youth oriented. You know, Valerie is cast amongst a series of youthful, beautiful people, and the people on the other side of the camera as well all seem to be young. So it feels as though, you know, the generation that Valerie grew up in has very much kind of departed, and she's plonked into this new youth-oriented environment.
Yeah, the show she's involved with, it's 4 very beautiful young people, 2 men, 2 women. It seems that the plots of the episodes revolve around them just getting off with each other. And Valerie's character is the disapproving aunt who lives upstairs. And it's initially sold to her that it's going to be a totally different part, totally different show. And she realizes quite quickly that she's pretty much invisible. And there were lots of scenes on the set, which is very male dominated, where it's clearly the young women in their bikinis are the ones getting all the attention, whereas she's just left on the sidelines, isn't she? I mean, and it's a tale as old as the Hollywood Hills. You know, she thinks she's going to come back. She realizes quite early on that she's unimportant in the old studio she used to work at. You know, people don't know who she is. And again, it just reminded me of Sunset Boulevard, when Gloria Swanson's character, Norma Desmond, goes back to her old studio lot, and people are just like, well, she's done, you know, she's no longer relevant. She's, you know, and it throws up all those questions about women aging compared to men aging, where men become distinguished and characterful as they get older. Women invariably are on the scrap heap because they're not as pretty or as young as they used to be.
It's interesting because she's portrayed by Lisa Kudrow as being pretty deluded, as still possessing that sense of she's important and she's relevant in the way she interacts with people. And, you know, her pieces to camera are that she's still the star of the show. And through a sequence of events, she's always brought back down to reality, but you still sympathize with her, because I think we all sympathize with the underdog, don't we? Even though she's a grotesque character, and by rights we should be looking at her thinking, God, who does she think she is? Look at her, she's a monster to a certain extent, but we sympathise with her, don't we?
Absolutely. It's really telling that her husband is totally disinterested in what she does. She seems very much on her own. There's that awful bit where they do that press launch in New York and the four cast members are brought on stage, the four young people, and it looks like she's going to get left behind. And my heart really felt for her then. Eventually she is brought on. She's not allowed to speak or anything, and she gets ushered off quickly. But I really, really felt for her. And it's true, she's a super interesting character, because she's not quite the grotesquerie of Norma Desmond. It's certainly not as grotesque as Baby Jane Hudson, but there is an unlikability about her at the same time as you're rooting for her, because you can see just how disinterested people are about her, you know, and so they say some terrible things to her. One of the execs says, "You took a small part and hit it out the park. You can't ask for any better than that." Basically, that's it. She should be happy with what she's done. You know, that tiny little part she's got when she has that one line that becomes a catchphrase. She's not allowed to make any suggestions. She's not allowed to do script rewrites, have a retake. You know, it was like, oh, God, leave Valerie alone.
It was really interesting. There was the scene when they were shooting the pilot and she came on and did her bit, which is her famous line is, "I don't want to see that." And she begs for another take. She begs the director for another take. Production are saying, "No, we're moving on, we're moving on." She encourages the audience to chant, "Give her another take, give her another take." Assuming that she's got that star power, that, you know, she can sway that, which, from working in the TV industry, you can see why the whole system despises her in that moment. It's like, it's not for you to decide whether we do another take. You are not the star. And the director, incidentally played by James Burrows, who is a giant among TV sitcoms. James Burrows actually plays the director in this, even though he's a director in Will and Grace. He directed Cheers, Friends, all those kind of things. He takes her around the back and gives her a really massive dressing down, which it kind of rang true for me, having worked in TV for a number of years, that what she did then was a really big no-no, and that's a real kind of signifier that you are ahead of your station. And she's constantly put back down into her box, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
Also, her treatment by one of the writers, Paulie G, he's called, this really hideous figure of a man representing this masculinity that always pushes the women down again. He's hideous to her. He's almost a sadist towards her. He really highlights the misogyny that exists in this industry as well, towards, you're a woman, know your place.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
You're an aging actress, and he just holds the most enormous amount of contempt for her.
At one point, he mimed shooting her, doesn't he? Mimed shooting her in the head, and because she's and as you were saying earlier, that whole sequence of her wanting to get the retake, you can imagine that she's going to be branded difficult from this point on, which was a label attached to so many different actresses back in the day. And Valerie, when she starts this, when she first gets the script, she's supposed to be an architect, and it's a very different script to what she ends up filming. And her character is dumbed down, basically. So she becomes this stupid aunt who owns the building. She's not allowed to be sexual at all. They put her in this hideous shell suit, you know, which she tries to have taken in just to try and jazz it up a bit. And even in the photo shoot when they're doing with the cast, the four young people are at the front and she's pushed to the back, and they keep telling her to stop pouting. You know, she's obviously worked the camera back in the day when she was younger, and she's still doing it, but they won't let her be sexual in any way at all, which again is so common for, well, it used to be common for women over a certain age. You weren't allowed to have any sexuality about you at all. And it's really telling in this. I think it was really interesting as a 2005, just remembering, we've talked about this before, like what not to wear and stuff. Just the treatment of women in the early noughties is so regressive compared to like the 80s and 90s, if you like. I've just been watching a couple of horror films from the early noughties, and the female characters just get shat on. Or not literally, not that kind of film. But the same happens to Valerie here. And just, Kudrow is excellent. She's just absolutely superb in this part, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, I've always, I mean, she was always my favourite actor in Friends. You could just see her performance is so considered. Like, every movement, every facial feature, every delivery is just spot on. I think she's a superb actor, and then she is what makes this. Obviously, you know, it was headed by her. She kind of developed the script and got it commissioned along with Michael Patrick King, who was fresh off the success of Sex and the City. So they kind of worked on it and developed it together. She's just a powerhouse, and she, you know, it's all due to her that you feel sympathy for this grotesque character.
Absolutely. There's some lovely meta moments in it. At one point, the reality producers as well, I thought reality could be more exciting, you know. And the end of the first episode, when she had on her wall all her pictures of her, you know, back in the day, and there's a really nice metaphor because they've been ruined because there's a flood or something, and they're all on the floor, and just like, you know, they've all just been destroyed, and it's like, there's her career writ large, you know, what's happened to it.
Yeah, you know, it's all hinges on fame and success for her.
Yes. Yeah, that's,
you know, and it just kind of highlights how fickle that industry is.
Absolutely. I loved when they were at that the press launch thing, and the network was talking about the other reality shows which were coming that year.
Yes.
Again, a really good snapshot of 2005. Also reality TV madness. So they have one show that was on launch that had newlywed couples literally battering each other with like shovels and pickaxes and stuff. And one which was to find America's next porn star, and involved women having mouthfuls of whipped cream and have to run upstairs and spit it out erotically or something like that. And I just thought, wow, they're skits and they're satires, but they're not beyond the realms of possibility. You know, especially in 2005, when it seemed you could make a reality show out of bloody anything, didn't it?
I thought what was the crux of this show was the line, she says it a few times to people, I just want to know that I'm being heard. Mm-hmm. She's constantly seeking relevance.
Yeah, and she never is.
No, she never is. And I feel that is the life of an actor to a certain extent, of just wanting to know that, you know, you might be part of this big, massive industry and big, massive machine. It's very difficult to kind of have your voice and have your say and have your opinions count, and not just be somebody who's given a script, they're the lines, that's what you say, you're being paid, count yourself lucky. You know, for a young person to kind of navigate that is difficult enough, but for a woman who's deemed to be, inverted commas, past it, it's even more difficult for your voice to be heard, you know.
Absolutely. Another little 2005 thing I loved was the mention of Juicy Couture. Remember Juicy Couture tracksuits that women would wear? I mean, hideous things. And the dresser then asks her if she's got a juicy ass, and she berates him for giving her body issues, you know, but like, oh God, Juicy Couture, put them on the fire, please.
Did you have Juicy Couture?
No. I feel like I should have done, but I didn't. No. There was a really interesting article actually about 2 weeks ago in The Guardian, and it was about a woman called Katja Meyer. She got into a scheme for female writers over the age of 40. And after finishing a script, a lot of production companies loved it, but they said, can we make the female protagonist 20 years younger? And she was like, hang on a second. I've just come off this scheme, which has got the backing with Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. And it's all about promoting older women and film and TV. And she's thinking, the only way I'm going to get it made is to have my lead female character in her 20s or early 30s. And it's like, and this was 2 weeks ago. So the issues of women and women of a certain age is still really prevalent and common. As I said earlier, look at the backlash against Pamela Anderson for daring to go out in public without makeup on, looking amazing. But because she's not adhering to the standards and norms, then she gets the shit ripped out of her.
Yeah, it was very telling in this as well that when Valerie first went onto the set to meet her castmates, and these young 20-something-year-olds ran up and said, oh, we're really pleased to meet you, Valerie. We're really excited to be working with you. And she thinks they're just extras because she's being told that the people who she's going to be working against are in their 30s.
Yeah.
But it's obviously very clear that from the inception process down to the casting, they've gone for late teens, early 20s people.
Yeah.
So that happens in this show as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, that's that article. She was told in one meeting, in a pitch meeting, somebody actually said to her, yeah, we don't really believe that women over 50 are a valid audience. So not only are they not allowed to be represented on screen, there's also a belief that they're not watching, or they're not part of, or should have stuff that's aimed at them. I mean, it's clearly getting better than it was 20 years ago when this show was made. But the fact that this lady 2 weeks ago is still having these issues shows there's still a long way to go. And the industry is really male dominated still. It's really difficult for different voices, female voices, working class voices to get into film and TV. So as we keep saying, Dave, the more things change, the more they stay the fucking same.
It might be interesting just to know at this point in this conversation, Sophie Willan, who is the writer and creator of Armour's Not Normal, how difficult it was for her to kind of make her mark, to get commissioned. She's very vocal about working class people working in TV, about how there aren't enough of them. And, she proposes initiatives on her own shows where they'll employ working class people in the crew and the cast. So there are pioneers out there who are trying to establish a more equal playing field for people who come from working class backgrounds and for women of a certain age. I mean, it's sad really that people have to still fight for that in this day and age, and it isn't already equal. But it's not. No, it's not, is it? It's not. We both know that.
It's not. It's not. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. What would you give it as a score?
I would give it 9 enormous hair rollers out of 10.
Right. Yeah. I would actually give it 10 Golden Globe Awards out of 10 because I enjoyed it so much. I thought it was great. I thought it was really clever and funny and smart and sharp. I'm very grateful for recommending it, our Dave.
Next week, we're going to be looking at a film that has its 4th installment out next week, also on Valentine's Day. Bridget Jones 4 is out, but we thought we'd go right back to the original and watch Bridget Jones's Diary.
Bridget Jones's Diary, yes. So get your big pants out, girls. Get your glasses of wine, your gay best friends to hand, because we thought we'd have a little look back in time at Bridget Jones's Diary, which I'm quite excited about. I haven't seen it since it came out, so it was a huge thing back in the day, wasn't it?
Hugh Grant or Colin Firth?
That's a really tricky one, actually. Colin Firth in Pride and Prejudice, Hugh Grant when he's been caught by the police and he's got a mugshot. I like a bad boy.
I'm going to go right in my diary.
Good. I'm going to take out my big pants. See you later.
Till next week. Adios.
Bye.